welcome to the Free Cheese, episode 481. I'm your Joe Dix, joined by Matt Sellner.
Hello.
Mark Augustiniak.
What's up?
The Free Cheese is a weekly video game podcast about video games brought to you once a week by thefreecheese.com. This week, we're not talking about a game in particular. No. Instead, we're talking Thanksgiving. What are you thankful for in video games? We've got a lot of things and talking points to discuss, but I would like to know, Mark, when it comes to dessert time, Thanksgiving night, while Santa Claus is flying through the sky, what are you reaching for?
Number one, doesn't matter what time of the day, sweet potato casserole. That is always my personal favorite. It's what my grandmother would always make. At least, I'm pretty sure it's the right name I'm thinking of. But you know, it's just covered with a layer of marshmallows on top.
Sure.
And they're like nicely roasted, toasted, whatever. I can eat that whenever.
I'm good with that too. It's been a bit since I was doing a little thing where I was making a dish pretty regularly, what had sweet potatoes like diced really finely in them, and something special about the sweet potato generally. But yeah, Thanksgiving sweet potato.
Sweet potatoes.
Yeah. Matt, what about you?
Dessert? Apple pie.
Classic apple pie. When's the last time you had an apple pie?
Probably last Thanksgiving. Other than Thanksgiving, never. Yeah. Probably never.
You don't find yourself middle of the year just going like, I'm about to buy me / make me a pie.
No, you don't go to like you don't go to McDonald's and get like a cup.
You're so funny, and I don't really have a sweet tooth. Like, I'm not one that like goes and like.
I envy that.
I don't go out and get like candy. There's something in front of me, sure, but man, like there's been stuff given to me for Halloween, like little like Halloween basket things that like Victoria's mom will like make for us, and like I might eat like 1 or 2 pieces of chocolate out of it.
Dang.
My sweet tooth. I'll snack on stuff, but I'm more of like chips and salsa or
savory
chips or pretzels or whatever.
Got like a savory tooth.
Yeah, like beef sticks. Like, give me them.
That's the go-to. I would say, I'm not quite monthly, but I would say 2 months-ish or so, I'm making a pumpkin pie at home. On average. Just because you got to. But then regularly, I will find myself in the bakery section or at a small bakery in Baltimore, loading up on some sort of something or other. There's some good places around here. A
pumpkin pie with like a scoop of ice cream on top of it?
Dude, nothing better.
Get it?
Nothing better. Yeah. I hope everyone out there listening had a fantastic Thanksgiving. This week, we're going to talk a little bit about what we're thankful for in video games. The idea here is that we'll kind of share something we are thankful for in video games, and then, the other two of us will have stories or something to coincide with, hey, I like that too because this. Mark, why don't we start with you? What's something you're thankful for in video games?
I'm not sure how to quite word it accurately, but the general term, I guess, would just be like the modding community. But that is such a broad term, but that can be, because that goes so many ways, but when sometimes like a game company just doesn't port a game that you would wish would be ported, or remaster it, or clean it up, or do something to help better preserve it, the modding community steps up and does the work, and most of the time, more often than not even getting paid for it. It's just a labor of love, or something like, or another. Like most I'm not sure if I call it infamous, but most famously, Silent Hill 2. Like, there's that whole group of dedicated people just working on doing a full on like
proper
proper remaster, like for the PC port or whatever, like, and they're adding so much to it, more than the original PC version ever had. Like, they get the widescreen support, cleaned up textures, modern controls. I think they're now working on where you can play the game fully with just a mouse and and a keyboard, but like, it's just, everything just feels like it makes so much sense what they're doing to it, and that is such a passion project. If you haven't heard of it, I highly recommend checking that out. But like, and then excuse me, and then for stuff like if there's a game that probably had licensed music and that license has expired, more so on the PC side than anything though, you can find workarounds to bring that music back if they change it for some reason, like Crazy Taxi, like on Steam. Like, they brought Crazy Taxi back, awesome, but the music is gone, and that is like half the game.
Yeah, that makes that game.
So the modding community brought that back, and you can just easily patch that in, no problem. Just little things like that. I really appreciate that side of it, and I also appreciate sometimes when you can just add the goofiest shit to games you just wouldn't expect either through modding, like changing a character skin, or you know what I mean, or something.
Yeah, when
like
you
that.
make Mr. X Thomas the train engine.
Yeah, in Resident Evil 2, yeah. Or like all the different skins you can be in like Left 4 Dead, or have like a whole like Nicolas Cage mod in that, where your flashlight shines the face of Nicolas Cage on everything.
That's perfect.
Like, it's so dumb. Like, but
like, so many of those dumb things end up becoming something more. Like, I don't know for sure, but I bet that, remember that cool train survival horror game that's in development right now?
Choo Choo Charles, yeah.
Yeah, that one. How much of that was inspired by that Thomas mod for Resident Evil? You know what I mean?
Yeah, who knows?
I think your point too of just like a community behind something that can breathe new life. Like, I've seen that so much with the Mister, where one person is doing PlayStation emulation better than PlayStation is doing, and like offering so much on that. And again, all done out of, I mean, granted, a lot of these Mister developers have Patreons now to help them out, but I think, that's just because people are so grateful for things that they want to give money. So these people have set these things up, but a lot of them would just be doing it anyway. And yeah, like that PlayStation Core on the Mister, you can do 8 times CD load speed, so that there's practically no loading times. You can do widescreen hacks. You can do, like, all sorts of stuff that the PS5 emulator or the PlayStation emulator on PS5 doesn't have. That in most cases, you can only play those games via a subscription service. Like, there's just so many bad things that this community of people are doing so much better. And like, I think that also extends to ROM hacking and stuff like that, in terms of like keeping games fresh. Like, I think of something like Super Metroid, which when you play it, you've played it, and you've played it, and you've played it. It's not that it's old, it's tried, true, classic, masterpiece, whatever you want to call it, but the fan community can come along and just add in a randomizer option, so all the items are swapped in random locations. Or same thing for Zelda. Like, there's all sorts of games like that have really great tools. And then I think localizing games that otherwise would not have been localized. Like, there's a game that I almost put on our season 11 list called Mizurna Falls that just got a fan localization that otherwise nobody would. But it's very much in the same vein of like a Silent Hill or Resident Evil. Mother 3 is a huge one, right? Like, Nintendo's never putting that out. Sorry, it's not gonna happen.
Yeah,
give it up. I gave up a long time ago. You should too. But play it, man. It's out there.
I think of one of the best. Well, no, sorry. One of the like most successful genres nowadays came out of modding. I mean, the Battle Royale would not have happened with not like for mods off of DayZ.
True. Very good point.
And then,
Even with,
PlayerUnknown goes, gets signed on to make his own game. And then that game comes out, and then Fortnite happens, and then there's a lawsuit, and then everyone in the world tries to do one. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and then here we are, Warzone 2 later. It's just
trend setting.
It's that, but I think the beauty of it too is like the key word of there is the community, where you have people who are working together to, do something more. And I think that's the neat thing that we get out of all this is like, I'm in Discords for Mister, for other stuff like related to that, and I'm sure like everything both of you have just mentioned, like there's a Discord, there's a community, there's a subreddit, there's a something. At worst, there's a hashtag for it where you can follow along with something that's happening in one of these spaces. And people are just sharing and learning and working together to make things cooler and better, all for the sake of playing.
Bunch of damn geniuses, I tell you what.
Yeah. There's a game we're playing next year. Sorry, I keep talking about next year, but I'm very excited about it. There's a game we're playing next year that we would not be able to play if it were not for a fan translation. So check that out. Yeah. Matt, what about you? What's something you are thankful for in video games?
A good boss fight. And I think I immediately just think of some of the more iconic ones from any of the From Software games in the last 5 iterations of them. There's some bad ones in there, but, there's more that stand out. But, like, you just go, like, you think, I don't know, like, just think of how good a good boss fight, especially one that you end on, is, as opposed to something bad that you end on. Like, this one gets ripped on all the time, but I agree with it because it wasn't that great. Like the Uncharted 2 final boss. I can't remember the fucking guy's name. It was bad. Like it was such a what a great game, and then you end on that note. But then you have some of these like crazy multi-tiered boss fights. That like involve into like its own level, and I think of like Sin from Final Fantasy X. Like, not only do you face Sin in like a 3-stage battle off of your ship, but like, then you go inside Sin, and it's a whole fucking level. Then you go on to face like the inners of Sin, and I don't want to give too much away if you never played Final Fantasy X at that point, but like, there's something so epic, and when it all comes together with, and not just gameplay, because I mean that's a big part of it, right? But like the music, the setup, the meaning like stakes in the story, that kind of stuff. It's so well done, and it just adds like the little cherry on top of a good level if done right.
Yeah, shout out to Metal Gear as well. I feel like they are pretty prolific with that.
Yeah, that straight up Bomberman boss fight you have to do with what's his face in 2 still stands out as one of the
Fat Man.
Yeah, Fat Man. Thank you. Yeah,
I still haven't played it personally, but I've always seen like the cinematic or whatever when in 4 when you're fighting Liquid or whatever, and
whatever is the right term for that.
Like you both inject each other to keep going and keep fighting. Yeah. I was like, respect. I love that. And,
that's one of the more unique ones. I mean, that's one of those ones where the game completely changes from what it's been the entire time, but it works. There's other times where that happens and it doesn't work, but that's one of the few ones where they can get away with it.
There was a time for me in the GameCube era, where after I beat Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, I would go back and constantly replay the final Ganon fights. Wind Waker, not so much because the it's a shorter fight technically, but I loved the finishing blow on that, where you just like get flipped up in the air, you come down, sword plant right in Ganon's damn forehead. So satisfying. But Twilight Princess, I made it more of like a cinematic piece for me. Like I choreographed my fight. I knew what like I made specific combos to do and all that stuff. And that's like a 3-stage fight, I think. Between between the beast mode, horseback, and then the final sword fight. And I made sure I got all the power ups and everything. It was kind of like when you're a little kid going back with action figures or something, and you're just you're recreating just a fight that you always enjoyed. It's pretty much what I did with that. So yeah, I will never forget that. So thanks, boss fights.
I've got one that I still just love wholly, but I'll save that one. Looking back a little bit at season 10, some of the ones we've talked about, but I think Rez had some really fun boss fights that I think just did neat things visually with the space and whatever. Some of them were a little frustrating by the end, but I think that Rez had some really cool ones. Pikmin 3, though, I think had some of the best boss fights of this year's games we've talked about.
I was going to bring that up before wrapping up this, so I'm glad you did.
Yeah, it's just they were a great test of your skills and how much you'd learned so far in the game, and they were just fun to actually do. I think Star Fox Assault, some of them were really neat. Some of those just kind of big moments in that game were a lot of fun. And I look back at stuff like Valis 3 and Parodius, where we were kind of those games are very tough and of a specific era, but they kind of always ended with this boss fight moment. I'll say I was going to save the Sonic Frontiers talk for a little bit later on. But Sonic Frontiers has had some really, really fun bosses and mini bosses that both, challenge what you're doing as Sonic, but also I think they're just clever, smart boss fights so far. I don't want to say too much because honestly, I was surprised at what things I've seen, but
everything feels like a little puzzle.
Yeah, they did a really great job at designing those in this game. For me, the all-time thing that stands out in terms of boss fights is the Castlevania games. I remember Castlevania Symphony of the Night opening with a boss fight is such a strong opening to a game. I'd later learned that that's the ending to Rondo of Blood. But that is super rad, and fighting that version of Dracula is super rad. I also really appreciate in Symphony of the Night, there's a part in the Inverted Castle where the quest of the Inverted Castle is just a recapitulation of Simon's Quest, Castlevania 2, where you are meant to go and gather Dracula's parts. And you get them by defeating whatever. You fight the ghosts, or not ghosts, but they're zombie fake versions of the heroes from Castlevania 3. So you have to fight Grant and Trevor and Sifa. And, it's that's cool. Knowing that Alucard started there, there's that kind of thing. I think that's a neat thing. Castlevania has just always done really, really great boss fights. I think Rondo, though, might have the best, of the classic Castlevanias. Might have the best boss fights to boot. Yeah, a good boss fight. A well-done boss fight is something, I think, to be thankful for. I also... Yeah, I'll spin... I try to stay positive, but I'll go a little stupid and cynical here. I was enjoying Gotham Knights, Bayonetta 3, and Sonic Frontiers, but I'm very thankful for everyone on the internet letting me know that those are actually bad games that I should not be enjoying. So I'm grateful for people for letting me know that those games are bad and I made bad choices with my life. And I'm saying that tongue in cheek and like a jerk because I really noticed that around Gotham Knights when it was launching, this kind of huge push of negativity, and same thing with Bayonetta 3. This just almost violent outcry to not play those games because of X, Y, or Z. And I don't know, I've been playing them and having a lot of fun, and I think that they're good, and I think that I'd hope that more people are not listening to the masses and whatever. Like, now, granted, let me put this out there. I picked the wrong time to buy all 3 of these games. With everything we've had to do for the podcast, recording, plus stuff, like, no time at all for this, for any of these. But it's all kind of shaken out now that we're through things and whatever. But it was a lot to bite off, I would say. But otherwise, I don't think there's anything wrong with these games, and I don't think there's anything wrong with people liking games that they want to like. I don't think there's anything wrong either. Like, I do have some problems with Gotham Knights. Like, if I throw a Batarang at one more person I'm trying to do a silent takedown on, I don't know if you've run into that, Mark, but like...
not so much with a Batarang, but it's more so like the prompt disappears if I look like 1 degree away from the enemy by mistake, because I'm trying to line up my attack.
So precise. But like when you're trying to sneak through an area and there's a bonus challenge to like get 5 silent takedowns and you're on 4 out of 5 and you're about to do the 5th one and the icon disappears as you press triangle for silent takedown and it becomes whatever for no reason at all.
Yeah.
And then you throw a Batarang and it triggers everybody to alert and then you're fighting and you blow that. That sucks and it doesn't feel good, but like otherwise,
No, I was going to say, like, I can imagine how tough that must be going solo and trying to do all that. And, like, but whenever I've been playing, I've been doing co-op, like, exclusively. Yeah. So it's just been a Nightwing, Red Hood going to town. And I play with my friend, like, who streams. And whenever, like, somebody comes into chat, they ask, like, you know, like, I've heard mixed things about this game. Like, what do you think? And like, from what I'm seeing, it doesn't look bad. And like, yeah, like it's not bad. Once you like throw the comparisons out the window, because I think that is the majority of the complaints is always comparing to a past thing. Yeah, and I'm just as guilty of that with a couple other games too. Throw it out the window and just try to accept it for what it is, and like understand what it is or where it came from. Like it's its own thing. Like it's not bad. Like it's. You know, I wouldn't say it's a 10 out of 10, but that's okay. It doesn't have to be. Like, not everything has to be that.
I think that's my big takeaway is, like, not everything has to be this up on stilts, Ocarina of Time level, perfect, best game ever made. But, like, it's still a lot of fun. It is not the Arkham games, but I think it's on par with them in terms of, like, Batman storytelling and lore and world building. The combat's different for sure. The movement, even stupid things where like some of it's there, like the silent takedowns with triangle. But like L1 is your grapple rather than R1. Like but again, after 15 plus hours, I was like not even thinking about those things anymore. By the time you get towards some of the later parts in the game, like you forget that this was ever that the Arkham games ever existed.
And I do think. I think the game does benefit more with a friend or something, just because, like, you know, like for the silent takedowns, like you could have somebody taking care of half of that load for you, or like you can better coordinate it or something, you know, get a different angle or something like that. There's a lot of shortcuts that can be made.
But there's something to like that game in particular of like you really get to feel what it's like to be one of those characters, like. You are straight up going out on patrol every night. Every time you leave the home base, you are patrolling the city. And like, you can do with that whatever you want. You could just sit around and go find petty crimes all night if you wanted to. Or you can go chase down a lead you have on one of the major villains. Like, it's all very optional and up to you. Some of the stuff on the periphery, it's like the gear and all. Like, I could care less about any of that crap. That the fact that you're getting 207 lithium and 409 beryllium, and then who cares?
You gotta craft all the good stuff.
Just let me have a single weapon and that be it. I don't know that part, whatever. But, yeah, this was sort of just a backdoor way to get to talk about some modern games we've been playing, since we spend all the rest of the podcast not talking about this stuff. But generally speaking, I hope that if you're listening and you've been on the fence about any game, not even these or whatever, but if there's something coming up in the next whatever, ignore what everybody is saying. Like, unless what they're saying is that they bought it and it crashes and breaks their system, maybe listen to that part. But like, barring those things, and even those things, they're going to be fixed in a, right? Like, no game's going to launch and then not get, I shouldn't say no, not that it would never happen, but.
And depending on your approach with how you purchase your games, you're probably a little more than qualified to get a refund if you don't like it. Like, I don't know, whether you go to GameStop, buy a physical game, get it used or something. Or if you're going on Steam, you have that 2-hour window that you can do. As long as you're under 2 hours, you should be able to get a full refund back. Like, I think that should be more incentivizing to at least try it out to see how you feel about it.
Yeah, I mean, the tough thing is games have gotten more expensive, and time is far less available to most of us. I think especially as we get older, but even when you're younger, you still have plenty of things that you have to do that you can't spend time playing everything. And there's too many games coming out that look interesting to be able to play them all. So it's tough because you want to make the right choice with your money and with your time. But I think if the reason preventing you from playing something is because a bunch of idiots got around a hashtag and said not to play something, that's the wrong reason to step away from it. Because had I listened to all of that rabble, I would not have half of the fun I've had with Gotham Knights, Bayonetta, Sonic, Final Fantasy 13, Lightning Returns.
Remember what Mark said about playing for less than 2 hours and determining if you like something? 13.
That would have been a good case, though, right? To turn it back in. That was my half little, whatever dumb thing. But the rest of my list of things I'm thankful for, I'm actually thankful for. Did we go all the way around yet? Yeah, Mark, what about you? What else you got on your Thanksgiving list?
So I guess my next bullet point they kind of bleed into one another. But indie games, I'm very thankful for those. I mean, a lot of them are formed, but a lot of them started out as mods based off of other games, and whether it's from bigger companies or smaller companies or individuals, they all started somewhere, and usually modding had a part in that. But indie games feels like a real way for a lot of artists to express themselves in one way or another, and you don't have to worry about the limitations of all the legalities that a AAA company has to deal with and has to worry about a mass consumer market and all that stuff. So it's nice to have, and are usually more affordable too, and all that. So it's just a nice thing all around. I just being able to fully express without the limitations, I think, is a very nice thing and very important.
Yeah, and you get things you wouldn't otherwise get in one of these. Like the big games, even when they're at their best, there's so many things they have to do because they were focus tested, they were whatever. Gotham Knights is one where even as good as that game is, the crafting system and all that crap, all the stuff that I hate likely happened because they had to look at other games and see what other games are doing and blah, 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 blah. All that stuff comes from that, where an indie game is just going to be the pure output of a single person or team, small team, whatever it is, right? But they're able to do what they want without all of that crazy oversight, which it's not to say that crazy oversight can't make a game good, because sometimes it does. It comes in and makes games better.
Right.
But, there's something pure and raw to a team.
We can even extend that further to hardware.
Yeah.
You might some independent systems out there or ways to play stuff Maybe I'm not sure if Analog is a good example, but I mean between that the Mister, like that's another, you know what I mean? Like
Ouya.
it's not, but the best one for me, right? Well, just okay, can't really call it the best one, but a good one, the Playdate.
Yeah.
I mean that was all like crowdfunded and supported, and you know that's just its own little thing. Has games you can only play on that platform. I mean, you can hook up to your computer and play it that way, but like, you know what I mean? Because of that crank and everything that it does, a lot of games are based around supporting that hardware. But all that just seems another just like passionate labor of love type of thing. It doesn't feel like it was forced to be something it didn't want to be.
Yeah. And I think to that end, I'm grateful for the tools available to indie developers now, because the Playdate, they Panic have made it incredibly easy to develop games for that, and they used a language that's common among other like small development environments. You have Game Boy Studio, which Game Boy Studio is just great, where like anybody with no coding knowledge can jump in and make a Game Boy game, which is super cool. But you also now, with the newer version of Game Boy Studio, can export straight to a Pocket file. So like I see indie devs on itch who put out Game Boy games that will run on an actual cart if you put it on an EverDrive, or flash it to a cart if you have the tech to do it. But you can also get a .pocket file and sideload it right onto your Analog Pocket and play it natively on that machine. Like, that's super cool. And that was all like, again, back to like the community side of things, but also like the fact that like indie devs have so much more. Even if you are an indie dev using bigger tools like Unity or Unreal, all that stuff, like there's a lot more accessibility now than there was 5, 10, 15 years ago. One over the other. Matt, how about you?
There's a game that... Oh, sorry. Just the last thing. It's just like, in like, if there's a game that there's like a specific thing you're looking for, a specific detail, chances are it's probably out there now, because the pool is so large.
Yeah.
That you can almost find anything that you would want to look for. And if not, you have the tools to make it, like you were pointing out. Exactly,
yeah. If you can't find it or something like it, yeah, you can make it yourself. There's a ton of stuff out there. Matt, what's next on your list?
I was trying to think. Would you consider Rocket League in the indie? I'm trying to think. Was that published?
I mean, it was a self-published thing.
Not in the traditional like two people worked on this thing, but Psyonix before they were acquired by Epic.
Yeah, the thing that gets weird about the term indie is like it's become genrealized at this point. Same thing with music. Like people think of indie music as a very specific sound, but like indie music straight up just meant you did not have a label putting out your record. And it was the same thing here, where it's like you just don't have a publisher. You were just, but then you had things like Hotline Miami come along for Devolver, and then Devolver becomes an indie publisher, and now you've got all these indie publishers, but by definition, you're not really indie anymore. So it's
almost like A24 in movies now.
Yeah, exactly. They're a smaller production company compared to the big bigs, but it's still a production company or publishing company. So it's weird, right. But I think Rocket League was indie, right? Like now it's owned by Epic, so it's a little different. But it was
Battle Passes,
but even
the ass
Epic
and stuff. But
yeah,
I was also gonna say, like, I think in the indie scene is kind of where you see the most unique gameplay, because usually it's like a group of people discover this one thing that makes this video game like so much fun, and they focus on it. And sometimes for its detriment, like some of the other things might lack or whatever, but like at least it kind of goes back to what you were saying with like Gotham Knights. Like there's like something there that makes it worth playing. It's not gonna hit a home run every time. Like how many dumb indie horror games have like the worst fucking story and predictable story in the world, but like at least like it's set up and whatever, it was all right.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think there's some stuff there. as opposed to like your Call of Duties.
There's definitely a range.
Yeah.
I'm not getting as deep into the gaming world as you two have with this one, but like a good lock picking.
Dude, we're just throwing crap out there. It doesn't need to be a whole.
I'm gonna throw out a good lock picking system, and then the same thing with the boss fights. There are plenty of examples of bad ones that make you not want to do them at all, or they get so annoying and tedious you want to stop doing them whenever possible. I'm looking at you, Mass Effect 2 from last week.
Well, I was impressed with some of the ones from Mass Effect 2, lockpicking wise.
You say you're impressed?
With some of the lockpicking stuff.
It is great for the first 10 hours, and then the last 15,
sure.
Get fucked. I'm tired of connecting the C to the C, the battery to the battery, the three stripes to the... it gets annoying. Please stop.
But there's the text one too, where you have to like match which line of text is which or whatever.
Half the time when you're scrolling, you can't even find the fucking one you need. It takes forever to pop up. I know exactly which one I'm looking for. You just look for the green line at the top, but there's none with green lines at the top, and I'm just waiting for it to scroll. Anyway, it gets annoying the last 15. But like something, I Fallout. From 3 to even 4, like I know even 4, it's has some bad vibes in this podcast, but I really like the lockpick in 4, or in I guess in the modern ones. Like the dumb thing where like you have a resource and like you can do like you rank up your skill, so like your lockpicking goes from like 0 to 99, and as you get better and better, it becomes easier to unlock things. Like I think you can still try to unlock lockpick a very hard lockpick. It's just almost fucking impossible unless you get at the right fucking angle. If not, you're just going to tear through your lockpicks. Like you know, like you're just going to go through them rapidly. Like you're going to have none left. I kind of like
the
that
one where you're dual analog sticks, right? Like where you're fine tuning the actual. And you can feel
you have to like
right?
you have to tune the lockpick, and like you try to wiggle and like you see if it starts to budge, and when it starts to budge, you gotta kind of line it up perfectly. I like that. I also like the computer hacking in that one, looking for the words. I thought that was always unique and like taking your time to go through it. But no, I always remember Splinter Cells, and I don't know if they do it past the first one. But that first one where you have to go from, like, key... You know, like, the different inserts that make a key work? Like, there's, like, the pins. All the different pins. You had to go from, like, each pin and tap it in a... I don't even remember the exact mechanic. I just remember having a fun time with it at this point. But you had to tap it in a specific way, and it would pop each pin, and if you fucked up, like, the whole lock, like, crashed out, and you couldn't lock it or pick it anymore. But, it was always, I even like did this like little 3D model of you tapping the pins and whatever. I thought it was always very clever. I don't know. I like a good lock picking system. That was my other bad example. BioShock, that first game can go fuck itself. The pipe thing, holy shit,
dude! No, that was just playing Pipe Dream.
Dude, I love that. The end game lockpicking was so impossible. You had no time to connect 18,000 pipes.
You gotta think quickly. You gotta think on your feet. No,
not 3 seconds quickly.
No, that one was not the best. No, when I think of lockpicking in games, I remember Fallout. Like, and I can still feel what it feels like to do that. I think they did that one really, really well. I would play an entire indie game of just lockpicking using the analog sticks. That would be a lot of fun. Especially if you could get into the minutia of what it takes to... Because do you guys know how lockpicking works IRL?
I get it.
I assumed it was more like Splinter Cells, but I don't.
Yeah, I know it was like Splinter Cells to a degree where you have to hit the pins.
Yeah, like, so the way that... I'm doing a really terrible like visual representation, but like you know how you have a key, right? And a key has teeth on it.
Mm-hmm.
Inside of a standard tumble lock, which is what most locks that we have and the ones you're picking in most video games, there's basically it's locked because these pins have fallen down, right? And they're blocking entryway. The key, you slide it in and it pushes the pins up, and they fall into the key in a very specific pattern, so that like what you're not seeing is that they're like all pushing in a different way upwards. This is not making much sense. If you saw what it looked like, it would make a lot more sense. But basically, like lock picking, what you're doing is you are moving those little pins inside of the drum vertically to where they should be. That's like what the pick part is. You're pushing the things up. And the other part that's supposed to be like a long flat rod, you're keeping them where they were as you work your way backwards through each pin. I'd play that game, man. I'd play a lock. That would be a fun game to play.
Let's get one of those little lockpick guns.
Yes, yeah. I want to go type lockpicking into itch and see what kind of stuff I can get.
I haven't played the Thief series, but I'd like to imagine that has some fun lockpicking.
I would think so. It's called Thief, right? Like you should have a good lockpicking system. This is just sort of a broad statement. I'm thankful for video games that let you play quickly. The aforementioned Symphony of the Night, being able to just jump right in and play the video game. I think especially as we get into more modern games, there's so much preamble and crap. They want to tell you their story and all of that, and they forget that it's a game that is meant to be played and have fun with. But the real thing I'm thankful that this will be maybe my last thing I'm thankful for that can hopefully lead into a broader conversation. I'm thankful that we have a new Zelda video game coming out next year. We are, in theory, like 6 months out from...
Unless it gets delayed again.
I know. From a brand new Zelda video game. So, there's that.
Yeah, like, we got a brand new Zelda game, and we haven't had one in 35 years.
It feels like... I mean, okay.
It's been 35 years, Matt. Are you crazy? Where you been for 35 years? Where you been? No, I think it's just from how long it took for Breath of the Wild and what that went through, and then versus like just games just take longer now to make, and that's still like setting in, I guess.
They do, but honestly, like there was always this kind of big gap between big Zelda releases, generally speaking, right? Like,
yeah,
Zelda 1 was 86. Zelda 2 was pretty quick after 87.
Yeah, that 87, 88.
Zelda 3 was 91. And then Link's Awakening
was right, the Game Boy ones, yeah.
But yeah.
But I guess as far as like a big leap goes, I can think it wasn't until like what, 96, 98 or
for Ocarina, it was 98. So like it was almost 7 years from Link to the Past to that. And then Majonie's was pretty quick just because they used the same world, but then Wind Waker was a couple years after Twilight. Like there's been like some solid gaps between Twilight and Skyward Sword. It was
practically skipped the whole generation because no one bought a Wii U.
Because I think just being in this current time of just instant information and always being hit with like news and marketing and whatever, we're more aware of all that, so it feels longer because we just keep getting hit with that versus like a magazine ad every couple months or something. You know what I mean? Like,
or the once a year like, hey, Miyamoto showed a picture of Link's feet. Yeah,
that's wild that it was that long because that was the beginning of the Wii that Twilight Princess came out.
It launched.
Oh, never mind. Wii. No, sorry, you had the other one. The one that Skyward at the end of the Wii. Never mind.
No, but it was beginning and end of the Wii because it was. I mean, Twilight was announced for GameCube prior to.
I was thinking we went from Twilight to Breath for a sec. I completely forgot about Skyward.
Well, but honestly, if you think about Skyward Sword, it came out in November 2011. When at that point we knew about the Wii U. Yes, because it was Project Cafe before E3 of 2011. We learned about it at E3 2011, and then it was just a wait for that thing to launch in 2012. Skyward Sword was the last big game, but it was kind of like, what else do you do besides Skyward? And then Skyward Sword ended up being so hand-holdy and whatever that, like, I still have yet to finish it. And I know, like, it's, I don't know.
Same.
Yeah, it's, maybe I'll do it before Tears of the Kingdom. I doubt it. But
I wouldn't.
No. Honestly,
okay
I've been working my way through Twilight Princess on Wii U. So, if anything, I'll finish that because I'm about halfway through that.
There you go.
I mean, I am excited for Breath of the Wild 2. I am very concerned, though, it's going to come out, like, the month after Elden Ring DLC, and that's going to be a major issue.
The fatigue.
Especially if I have to replay an Elden Ring playthrough to get to the DLC.
All right, let me put it this way.
Fucked. I went a path in my life, and I went one way, and I did not save anything for that scenario.
That would hurt. But I've been thinking about that all year long, because before we knew that Tears of the Kingdom was delayed until next year, I was like waiting on I was maybe going to jump into Elden Ring, and I'd been thinking about all that stuff and the open worldness, like, do I want whatever. I ended up playing a ton of open world games this year between Gotham Knights and Ghostwire Tokyo. At the beginning of the year, I was playing Shin Megami Tensei 5. There's probably a ton more I'm forgetting about. Yeah, I don't remember. But even some stuff we've done for this season, I think, was kind of open world stuff. Halo, well, I guess I beat that before this year, but I don't know. What my hope is that we have more capacity within us for open world stuff than you'd think. Did I say Sonic?
No, I don't think you did.
Then Sonic also.
Monster Hunter, probably, right? Like,
yeah.
I guess it's more open zone.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm thankful for Tears of the Kingdom for a couple of reasons. To just ride along that train for a second. Like, yeah, it's cool that it feels like it's coming more to fruition. It feels like it's an actual thing. It's nice having a title. It's nice that they just low-key announced the Switch Pro that same date, because it's probably going to be a launch title for that. And it's probably the last game in this series I could see. Like, I could see just being like, all right, we don't want to do another one of these again. We got to switch it up. So this means this could be the next Zelda game after this one could be a complete visual overhaul. It could be a completely different game entirely. And I'm always looking forward to how things change.
Yeah. I think
a third game with this would be a little tiring.
To be honest, there's parts of me that are already tired of it. Like, I don't necessarily want more of the Breath of the Wild world and stuff. Talking about boss fights, I was thinking about Zelda and how Breath of the Wild felt very lacking in that regard. In the old Zelda games, you ended up having those kind of like very unique boss fights for each dungeon or area or whatever.
Twilight Princess, man.
Yeah, man, it's been super good playing that one, and I hope we get more of that in Tears of the Kingdom. I also hope we don't get a Switch Pro. I would love it if Nintendo just kept going, man. The 10-year console. Do it.
Oh, man, I don't know. That might make me neglect it more.
I know. We need more. I need more power under the hood, man. But then again...
Just a little bit.
Yeah. We got a couple more minutes left. Mark, you got one more thing you're thankful for?
I'll chuck a small one this way.
A small one.
Ragdoll physics.
Oh yeah,
love it. I laugh every time. It's such a great thing. It's just something about like the slapstick nature of it. Just gets me, man. Just cracks me up. Speaks my language. And funny enough, Breath of the Wild, sure enough, has that. As soon as you fall down a mountain, you're just sliding forever, hitting everything along the way. Like, Link should just be dead. Every bone in his body should be broken. And it seems like it, just how loosey-goosey he is. Just sliding down for eternity. But, man, just... Or think of, like, Red Dead Redemption. Remember, like, John Marston would fall down or something, or, like, you can get into a fight or you're too drunk. Like, I think the Rockstar games were pretty good with that to a degree. But yeah, just a whole fighting game based around it, Gang Beasts, like,
yeah,
it's basically that, just physics based momentum fighting. Yeah, cracks me up. I
think there's something silly, not just your character, but like the FromSoft games have a very good way of like everyone you kill becomes ragdoll, but sometimes like every once in a while, like someone will get stuck on your sword or whatever, and like the kill feels so heavy, and you know you all the strategy and stuff, and then it becomes the lightest little flimsy little fucking thing on the screen, and like you just spin them real quick around and you just go flying across the room or whatever,
just
like,
a wet spaghetti noodle flopping
around.
It's
like yeah, it's just like, especially like if it's like a backstab, because I feel like that's when I get like you get like a body will get caught on yours and you kind of have to like twirl them out of the way or whatever. Yeah, it's just like the most heavy, like, boom, and like especially on a PS5, like you feel like the DualSense, like all this weight into this stab or whatever, this kill, and then all of a sudden, like you said, a wet noodle just flinging around.
Skateboarding games have very good ragdoll physics. I remember like all the weird dumb Bales and Tony Hawk games, but even up to Session, like just bashing into something and just like falling and flailing, and yes, that's but no, I also remember Bloodborne specifically grabbing something and having it on the end of the cane. Super good.
Dumb.
Yeah, Matt, you want to close us out?
Mark didn't bring it up, but he put it in Discord, and mine piggybacks right on top of that. So I feel like I need to mention his. He said crossplay, and crossplay is absolutely amazing, especially when you have like, sure, I have pretty much access to any of the different consoles, but not all my friends have access to all the different consoles. So it's nice to kind of know I can play in my preferred way, but still play with them. But then my thing was cross chat, and it was just kind of announced that Discord is finally, like, voice chat's coming to PlayStation not too long ago, and like not only like Discord, I don't want to say thankful for Discord because there's other games that do it, but like the fact that we can chat now as well, because sometimes games didn't have that. Like Rocket League went crossplay, but for like at least a year, there's no way to chat with anyone if they weren't, like, even if it was with friends, like there was no in-game chat to go across systems. So like we would have to like do like an Xbox Live chat separately, or go on Discord separately or whatever. But yeah, like games like Call of Duty is a good example. I think Fortnite even does it too. Like, you know, yes, it's cross play, but they also, like, in their lobbies have cross chat because the game hosts their stuff. Yeah, then that leads, and you know, in Warzone 2, there's proximity chat, and that's gonna lead to fun things there.
Yeah. Yeah, like crossplay, I'm glad it's becoming more of a thing. It's becoming more acknowledged and whatever, but it's still, there's still some rough patches here and there in terms of like how exclusive is, you know, the crossplay or something like that. Like, but when you brought about Discord coming to PlayStation, that is such a much needed thing within a lot of like circles, like with my friends, because a lot of them own a PS5, and that's it. And like I'm mostly PC now, or more so recently, and games like Dead by Daylight or something like that, it is very hard for me to talk with them. Like I had to boot up my PlayStation 4 or the app just to join their party chat while I'm trying to wear headphones and listen to my PC audio and play on this end, and it's such a nightmare. But for that, like, Discord is being the bridge that we need for a lot of that cross chat type of thing. But yeah, I'm really thankful for things to be more accessible and not have to worry about console wars as much in that degree, where like everybody has to be in one camp.
Yeah, you're always gonna have to worry about that though, because people are idiots.
The thing I like about like separate consoles is when you have first party studios that have talent, that understand the hardware, that develop for it the best. Like I think that's still super strong and super necessary, right? To make those consoles feel great. Like the stuff I've been playing on PS5 has been multi-platform and it does not fully take advantage of the hardware. So like compared to when I got the PS5, played Miles Morales, and it was no load time, zipping around, like people who understood that hardware inside and out, versus like Sonic, where it needs to cut to a training screen while it loads, even though the load's very quick. So you almost like don't get through the training sequence because it just sucks that you have to do that. Yeah. Anyway, I like when developers can take advantage of the hardware, but other than that, I would love if the communities could just be across the board, man. Like, my friends list is my friends list, period. Like, the Discord integration, like, I haven't used it yet on Xbox because I haven't had a need to, but,
right.
I don't know if I can convince you all to jump back into Halo with me, because shout out to being grateful. I'm very grateful they've got Match XP now. That feels good. Halo is back on the menu, and it tastes pretty good. But yeah, I mean, if you guys get into that, then maybe Discord makes sense, because I assume both of you'd be playing on PC.
Yeah, but like Xbox is so more PC friendly lately that like
you almost don't need Discord.
Yeah, you can just hop in a party chat through Xbox app on your computer. Like you don't even need Discord for that one.
I didn't want to make this a Discord thing because there's cool things though, like just with if you do a cross platform and you have like a internal voice chat thing, like I think of something like Friday the 13th with proximity chat, right? Or you can't chat with your friends, or you can't chat across the camp until you get a walkie-talkie, and then everyone's like, there's stuff like that too that you need like the cross chat integration stuff to work. And with the crossplay stuff, I will say, I think at this point, I'm honestly more shocked when I read that something doesn't have it.
I was surprised Gotham Knights didn't.
Yeah, or like that. Like half, you know what I mean? Where it's like it's only supported within like its own generations of consoles, or it's like only one way, or like it's only PC and PlayStation, but not PC and Xbox, or not.
Yeah.
Or you know what I mean, just something like that.
Yeah.
Or even it seemed weird, I guess, but like even something like Mass Effect 2, there was one time where I was trying to do xCloud or Xbox gaming, Xbox Online or whatever the fuck it's called. I don't even know what it's called.
Xbox.com/play.
Great. Then you got to make it an app on your iPad. Okay. Anyway.
Yep.
I was trying to see I started it on my PC. Let me see if I can take that save to xCloud because a cross save, right? And I guess it makes sense that I couldn't, especially because it's like the EA app that you have to launch from the Xbox app. But then again, I do own it. Whatever. Anyway, it was just kind of like, even though it makes sense that it doesn't exist, I was just kind of like, oh, I can't.
Yeah,
cross save's not a thing on this, and then really cross save's like not a thing at all. Like not just xCloud, like anything, like from PC to Xbox. If you own the Legendary Edition on both, so I was like, oh, that's kind of weird for a game that has such a focus on bringing your save over.
Yeah,
I would, for that, then I will recommend another thing I'm thankful for. Savefileconverter.org. Or, hold on. I gotta type it in and figure out what it is. Savefileconverter.com. It's not, foolproof. It's certainly not without its hiccups, but you can convert files between a lot of platforms.
Thanks, modding community.
Yeah, dude, full on. But in that regard, you could take, they don't have it working for Mass Effect, but you could pass things off from one to the other. I got a Parasite Eve save from my Mister to my PSP to my Vita, back to the PSP, back to the Mister. I know, I see your face, Matt, but it worked pretty well.
I guess we're shouting out .coms as well. Us internally, I think we should be thankful for how long to beat .com.
Yeah,
much planning this year and probably next year has been involved.
Oh, definitely next year.
That website.
I will tell you all after last week's Mass Effect 2 that Season 11's games were chosen straight up. I had 2 games that were front runners for next year that did not make the cut because they were far more than 10 hours apiece. So
also, that is integrated in the Xbox now.
I explained why I fucked up Mass Effect 2 last week. Sorry.
No, it doesn't, that was last week. Next week, I would like to invite the listeners of this fine episode to come back and listen along as we discuss Max Payne, the Rockstar published, Remedy developed classic from the PS2 era, but what was that, the 6th generation, 5th generation of consoles?
5th?
PS2.
I think it was the 5th
generation.
So yeah, we'll be talking about that one, ranking that one as we always do. And then after that, with Max Payne, that's the third to last game we've got. Only 2 more after that. We're moving right along. So come back and do that. I am thankful for Mark and Matt both hanging out on this podcast with me every week.
Aww.
And we've been having a lot of fun this year. And I think we'll continue to next year. And I'm thankful for you, listener, for listening to this and every episode. That's it. I'd be also thankful if you told your friends and your mom about us. Because your friends and your mom should be listening to the podcast too. So, jot that down. Anyway, that's that. That's the Free Cheese episode 481. We'll see you next week. Till then, thank you, Mark. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, listener, for listening. Goodbye.